Whether you're on Team 2024 or Team 2025, I think we can all agree on one thing. There's probably more days behind the Nintendo Switch than there is in front of it. The big news of today, the day I'm filming this, is the speculated price point and feature, I guess you could say, that the Nintendo Switch 2 could see based on a VGC article that just happened. However, that's not what we're going to be talking about today. I want to do my personal predictions of what features I believe we might be able to see in the next console. Now, this week I kind of want to speak more about some software features, and then next week I want to speculate more on the hardware design and functionality like that. But we're not getting ahead of ourselves, we're going to do this week's video first. If you're new here, please consider liking and subscribing, and without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first two features I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 could have can kind of be grouped into one theme. Now, take a look at this photo. Now, do you notice anything wrong with this image? I can point it out to you if you can't. There's absolutely no personality. So don't get me wrong, there's nothing specifically wrong with it. I just think that it goes too far into minimalism, to the point where there's absolutely nothing interesting about it. Now, it's also a crime that it's been 7 years since the Switch released, and there hasn't even been more colors added to the themes. We've just always had black or white. I personally believe that it's probably a safe prediction to say that we'll probably have themes, or more themes, I guess you can say, in the next system. So these themes could either be something you buy on the eShop, kind of like the 3DS did, or maybe you can set some screenshots you took in-game and use those as your wallpaper, or even they could probably do something along the lines of what PS5 does, which is probably the lamest option, where basically whatever game you hover on will have a kind of faded, blurry version of it expanded in the background, but it still gives more personality than this bland black and white background we do have now. So for the next feature, we'll have to look back at that image again, so let's pull that back up. Do you notice anything? Do you hear anything? Just listen closely, do you hear anything? No? Exactly. Although there's probably a ton of people out there that might disagree with me, and I do think that this feature of menu music should be toggleable, so if you do want it, you can have it, but if you don't, you can toggle it off. I do think that is just missing from the Switch. Like when I boot up my Wii U, which is very infrequently, but when I do, it just, the memories flow right back in. The second I hear that chime, it's just so nostalgic and it feels good. It feels like the Wii U had personality. And that's probably the only thing the Wii U did have, but still, it's the personality that I think the Switch is missing. Because I really can't complain about the games we got for Switch. Now those are great, it's just the Switch itself I feel like is not interesting in itself except for the hybrid nature. And if you look back historically, Nintendo's always had menu music for their home consoles. Now when I say historically, evidently I only mean since the GameCube. The GameCube had menu music, the Wii had menu music, the Wii U had menu music, and those helped give that console an identity of its own almost. Like from just when you're booting up the game, you don't have to listen to it for long, you don't even have to listen to it at all honestly, but it does add to the factor of, hey, this makes this console unique. The next thing I think we can probably anticipate seeing on the next Switch is a better eShop. Now, I'm not sure about you, but for me, using and navigating the eShop is a very frustrating experience. First off, the user interface is as slow as frozen molasses. Don't get me wrong, the Nintendo Switch Online app is the exact same thing, incredibly slow, and it is frustrating, but going back to topic. Now, don't get me wrong, I personally rather collect my games physically than digitally, so the eShop's probably never going to be my cup of tea anyways. But man, the eShop is not helping me gain confidence in an all-digital future. Another hope I have for this new and improved eShop is a better filtration on games. I'm not sure if it just needs better filtration or maybe some scanning upon games being uploaded to the eShop, but I think, indie games that have been given an honest effort to be good can be put into a section separate from games that are basically just shovelware. Because shovelware will always exist, and that's okay, I'm okay with that. They also have the right to be on the eShop, even if they're absolutely terrible. But if the game only consists of a few asset swaps, no, that's not a quality game. Don't put it beside Breath of the Wild or Stardew Valley. One thing this video is making me realize is I think I really like menu music, because if there's one more thing I really hope they add is that menu music that they had like the Wii Shop. You hear that? That's the sweet, sweet sound of consumerism, and I miss it dearly. I'd say this next prediction is more on the smaller side, but either way I still really hope it happens. I predict that we're going to have a proper activity log. The one we have now doesn't necessarily track our hours accurately, which is kind of a bummer, because if you're going to put one of these types of features, wouldn't you try to at least make sure that it works? And also, when we had to transfer over data, if you let's say bought a second Switch, like I have the original OG Day 1 Switch and I also have a OLED. Well, when it came time to transfer over my data to my OLED, I lost most of these hours once, I started playing again, it resets the hours. I also think that showing the last 10 games you played is a little much, maybe only the last 3 games or even just the last game you played. I think that's more than enough, as in to show your friends what you're playing. But yeah, I don't have much to say about this feature because, again, it's a pretty straightforward feature. All I'm asking for is for it to work. Another feature I predict might make a comeback on the quote-unquote Switch 2 is Street Pass. This was a beloved feature on the 3DS, and a lot of people would probably, actually I think a lot of people just plain out wanted it for the Switch 1, but we didn't get it. By all means, I don't think it's like a mandatory feature, but it's definitely something I think people really did miss, because it kind of gives you a sense of community and ownership of the device, where when you're out and about in public, which the whole hybrid nature of the console kind of makes sense for this type of feature, it really makes you think of like, oh, I wonder where I passed that I kind of, who else had one? Where did we meet? I'm not super duper confident that it will come back, but at the same time, if it does, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Now for these next 2 features, I actually have tangible evidence from Nintendo, kind of insinuating things like this might actually happen. First off, even though it was technically filed all the way back in May, on December 28th, a patent became public by Nintendo. Of course, this is just a snippet of it, and they did show a few ways it could possibly work, but the patent had to do with sharing digital content. Now, of course, this might mean being able to share some downloaded games on the eShop with some friends or family members, but I think that this might also be pointing towards download play. I remember having download play on the DS, and it was really cool, even though it was kind of lame in the sense that typically the people that didn't have the game couldn't experience the game fully. Like in Mario Kart, you could only be Shy Guy and only a certain amount of maps were available. But that would also incentivize those people to go out and actually buy the game so they could experience it fully with their friends. And I really think it would be super duper cool if they brought that back. I really hope they do, but again, at the same time, I feel like, maybe they're just going down the boring route, which is still good, but, just being able to share with friends, most likely just family. This next prediction, I just know people are going to brush it off. People are definitely going to say that this isn't even important, but I strongly disagree. I strongly believe that services such as Netflix and Disney Plus will be making their way to the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo has already come out and stated that they are very much looking to becoming an overall entertainment company, not just a video game company. We can see things like, for instance, the theme parks in Universal, and even the Mario movie, and the Legend of Zelda movie that's coming up. And I also have proof that they're at least thinking about these types of things, because on May 19th, 2 days later after the one I just showed you, there was another patent put in. And the whole patent has to do with viewing media. You can even see at the top where it says figure 51, it says anime A, or in figure 50 where it literally says content selection screen. It's basically as clear as day that Nintendo is looking into, content viewing on the system. Now, of course, it's to mention that just because they filed a patent doesn't mean they're going to use it, but I really won't be surprised if this one does pull through. Now that's all I have for this video today, so make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to tune in next week where I talk more about hardware-specific predictions. But now I want to hear from you. Do you have any predictions in terms of software coming to the next system? Or do you think any of my predictions are, pretty solid? Let me know in the comments. But until next time, wareo!